All right, we are back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
Shane.
And I'm Scott. We're going to do this video on our own free will and no holds barred.
Yeah, so we're talking Deshaun Watson tonight. Um, yeah, I mean, it's tricky. Like, who knows what's going to happen in terms of suspension, no suspension. At the end of the day, it comes down to how we value him right now, or how, as a dynasty owner, you value him, or if you're trying to acquire him, where your head's at in terms of what he's going to miss, what he's not going to miss, yada, yada, yada. Real quick before we get into it, if you like this channel, get any value from it, please hit that subscribe, hit the like. Let's get rolling. Scott, you're up
Well, real
first,
quick,
my friend.
I just wanted to
Real
add to
quick,
that,
what?
Clay. Yeah, if you like this channel, have your kids subscribe too. They don't have to watch. Just make them
True.
subscribe.
All right. So Deshaun Watson, for me, I think one thing we have to remember is just how good Deshaun Watson is. He's essentially, people may dislike this, but he's essentially Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's that good from a fantasy perspective. He's been that good in the past. And you can almost argue he's never had the situation as good as either of those two guys. So the ceiling is immense. And he's still only 26. So less than 18 months older than like Joe Burrow, 2 years younger than Dak Prescott. So, I mean, he's right in that prime where all the other elite quarterbacks are already sitting. So it's really just the off the field nature of whatever comes out with him, whatever the result of it is. We're not even going to talk about that really on the video. But now I think the thing that really drives his value is he has time on his side. If everyone remembers when this went down last year, it wasn't even the civil allegations. It was the stuff with the Texans, like, hey, he's never going to play with the Texans again. And then this compounds it. And we had to wait all off season. And as you noticed with Watson's market, it went down and down and down the closer we got to the season. Well, the season's over. So we have a brand new time period here to where, you don't have to worry necessarily about what happens for 7 more months. So now I think you can take a little bit more risk. So how do you value him? I mean, I'm probably higher on him than most just because once the season started, you had rosters that could afford to trade for him, rosters that could afford to stash him, rosters that already traded for him and are going, there's no reason for me to get out of him right now.
Yep.
So it comes down to like, how high do you value him? I think you put him in right inside the top 8.
Mm-hmm.
And does that mean I'm going to trade like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow for him? Probably not. But I think you tier him in right below those guys. And so if you can pivot up from some of the other quarterbacks that are lower, that's how I want to go about it.
What do you think, Shane?
I think Scott's spot on. Like he was saying, we have 8 months until the season, right? So that's an infinite amount of time. That there's enough time now that I can trade for him, and if I get panicky in 5 months, I can trade him away. As a player, he was easily a top 3 quarterback, I don't think that's changed. I think he, just from performance, he slides right in there with Mahomes and Allen and pushes Kyler down and maybe even my guy Lamar. And he did that with DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller half the time. So if he ends up in one of these situations where we think he could end up in like Denver, like that would just be impressive to see with Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick and Noah Fant. And I guess Cortland Sutton as a 5th option isn't bad after the running backs. The thing about him too right now is he's still relatively cheap. Like this is still the cheapest you're ever going to be able to get him between now and whenever he gets his 6-game suspension from the league. So if you're going to make the move on him, you need to do it now. Like you should have already done it, but if you're still hell bent on getting him, you got to do it now. Because after he settles and we find out he's got a 6-game suspension, we don't have to worry anymore. So there's no incentive for someone to sell low at that point, because 6 games in a dynasty career is nothing for a quarterback.
Yep.
You could stream that position for 6, your secure quarterback 2 for 6 games next year and you'll be fine. And then you plug him back in and you've just become one of the favorites, assuming that your other quarterback isn't, Mac Jones.
Would you give the 101 and the 106 in 2022 for Deshaun Watson right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we were going to get into picks. I think he's definitely worth any draft pick in this class. And then if you want to add on something else. I mean, I would probably add to that deal, try to get like a second back, just because I think we've talked about there's going to be a ton of running backs where you can kind of just add to your running back stable there. But yeah, I like that price. I think the thing about what Shane said is a lot of Watson transactions are going to happen one time in a league. So like if someone buys him at this price, they're probably following like what we're talking about in this video. You know what I mean? Like buy him right now and then wait till see where his value goes. So like it's going to be hard to like buy again and again. It's like once he gets traded, it might be the only trade that goes down. So think about that too. I think that gives you even more incentive to want to buy him right now.
Would you rather have Jalen Hurts in the 105 or Deshaun Watson?
I'll still take Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's listen, you could get Hurts that outperforms Watson for a year or two, you know what I mean, or matches him, but I don't think the 105 in this class, I'd be looking to break that 105 up into multiple pieces too. So it really just depends on your league, but I think that's a fair deal, both sides. I can see the intrigue on both.
Okay, would you rather have Deshaun Watson or Justin Fields in the 106?
See, I'm still a Justin Fields truther, but Justin Fields in the 106. Can I get that to the 105? If it's 105, I'm taking it. I'll take the 106 in the Justin Fields. I think I like Justin Fields' long-term outlook better than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I don't think 105 and 106 is a huge difference, and I think the Fields is where that's are you going to end up getting Deshaun Watson? Probably not, but I think you could end up getting another top 10 quarterback in there. So I like that deal better than the Hurts deal for sure. I would take it.
The beauty part is I'm not going to have to pay anything near that to get him. I could probably send somebody Devonta Smith and not Joe Burrow. That's too high. Give me a tier below Joe Burrow. I bet you I could trade Kirk Cousins and Devonta Smith for him. And you know what? From that owner's perspective, I could see it because you're like, oh, well, I got Cousins, who's probably a low-end QB1 for the next couple of years, and Smith, who's probably at worst a wide receiver 2 for a guy that, still prison is in the range of outcomes. So I could see the opposite owner's perspective on that. But yeah, the upside on Watson right there, I love it.
A lot of this too depends, like we talked about with, who the owner is. Like if somebody has been grinding through and waited out this entire time, right? They've been able to have Watson on their bench because they got a couple other good starting QBs. It's almost going to take an overpay to get him off of their roster too, So it's very
but there's also teams where you just couldn't let him go last year, right? And there's that fatigue where sometimes you just get to the point with a player on your roster and you're like, look, I held out as long as I could and I couldn't get what I want. I don't want to go through this for another year. So that's why I'm not gun shy on sending out those offers to the Watson owners, even if they held them all year. Now, because like you're saying, rightly, they should be like, no, I've already taken all the risk. Like I just let him sit out a full year. Let me try to win some of the reward, but I could see the fatigue setting in as well.
Well, I think there's some principle here too, because I tried to buy Watson in like November and December because I'm always thinking of an angle. So I went to the teams that had Watson that were contenders, and I'm trying to buy at 60, 70%, figuring even if they had some fatigue, do they want points, right? But if I'm in one of those teams' shoes, the season's over. His value has gone up 50% since December, just simply because the season ended. So, those players where, I offer him to a team in December, hey, you want Watson? It's like, no, man, he's going to go to jail. And then a month later, hey, you want Watson? Yeah, I'm interested. I'll pay more than I would have paid in December. Okay, well, you're kind of just admitting that you were wrong on you should have had the foresight to buy back then.
Right.
So I have a really hard time selling. I have a hard time looking at a team where I would go, I'd be motivated to sell right now, unless you're selling at exactly what we've said to buy at, which is like, 2 top 6 picks or Fields.
Yeah.
I can see those deals. If you're getting Fields in a top 6 pick, I can see the pivot. But if it's just, I'm looking at DLF startup ADP and they have Watson at quarterback 18. Below Cousins, Tua, Mac Jones. Any of those guys easily plus to get Watson. Come on.
Big time. Would you rather have, speaking of Tua, he was on my mind. Would you rather have Tua and Jalen Waddle or Deshaun Watson?
Can I get Waddle with another quarterback?
Well, who knows?
Get the
Maybe
stack,
Waddle Watson will be Waddle's quarterback.
No. I don't mean in real life. Can I get Waddle and a different quarterback in fantasy?
What would you do, Waddle and Tua or Deshaun Watson?
Son of a bitch. Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think I'd go Watson. Stafford, Kupp for Watson in a second.
Watson in a second. And the reason that I'll get around that is because how I'll justify that in my head is that Kupp is a 29-year-old wide receiver, so his value is already peaked. And Stafford, just we saw what his best season's ever going to look like. It's already like if he was going to be elite, he would have done it already. He would have done it in Los Angeles this year.